14-year-old Magnus Carlsen leaves Sergey Dolmatov hopeless, and which forces his resignation in just 19 moves. So after Magnus is basically playing with the white pieces here, and Sergey is playing with the black pieces. And after e4 and e5 is played, and this is the Zuckertot opening, the Dutch variation being played right now. And knight goes to c3 now, and knight to c6 by Sergey, and the pawn captures the pawn, and the bishop captures back, activating the bishop, and the pawn push happens to d4, and the knight captures the pawn, and the knight captures the knight back, and the pawn captures back, which allows the queen to go back this and capture this pawn. So as of this move, the queen and the knight are active, whereas black's bishop is active and is looking at this the capture of this c2 pawn over here. So black goes for development and places knight to f6 here, trying to get his king side pieces out on the board. And bishop now comes to c4 by Magnus, placing it on that particular light square diagonal, which is very active and open, and which also prevents the king from castling on the king side. So pawn push to c6, maybe looking to push the pawn later on, attacking the bishop, and bishop to g5 now by Magnus, pinning the knight over here, and the pawn push to b5 happens instead of pushing the pawn over here, and which would have created a good pawn structure on the queen side, but that didn't happen. But it would also expose that dark square diagonal as well. But anyways, the bishop goes back to b3, keeping an eye on that on this light square diagonal, very open, and it's a very powerful bishop now. So bishop goes to e7 now, and trying to unpin this knight, but a better move was to push the pawn here, attack the bishop so that it retreats, or either it goes for a capture, and you could simplify the position. So after the bishop to e7 move, Magnus castles on the king side. So black still cannot castle on the king side, and his queen side is pretty open, and even castling is would be a bad idea. So queen goes to d7 now, and rook comes to e1 now, pinning the bishop against the king, and the king had to move, and it moved to d8. And after that, Magnus plays rook captures this particular bishop, and now you're forced to take capture back with your queen, otherwise it will be the other rook will come to the rook, and the d file will come to e1, and it will be a check, and a good attack will be launched. So now this knight is again pinned against the queen, and also the king over here, and it's in a dangerous position. So the queen goes to f4, attacking the bishop, and the bishop retreats to d7. A better move was to push the pawn so that you can attack the bishop and go for an exchange and try to simplify the position. But bishop went back to d7, and now knight to e4 is played here, attacking that particular pin knight. And now pawn push to d5 happen, attacking the knight, and the knight captures the knight, and that now happens this h6 pawn. Pretty late, Magnus is already ahead in the game. So bishop now retreats to h4, and then this fork is created, but it wouldn't matter because Magnus plays queen to d4 here, and basically as of this position, Sergey resigned the game, because a possible combination is if you capture the bishop like this, the knight will capture this pawn with an attack on the rook, and once this knight is captured, you can capture your this rook back, and once the check is closed, you can capture one of these pawns, and basically two of these pawns are still hanging, and the bishop can capture it. This pawn is undefended, so it's attacked twice. So even if the queen comes here and protect this pawn, you can still up, and Magnus will be up by 3 pawns, and you are looking at an endgame with an open and exposed king, and that's probably Sergey resigned the game. So a good continuation in this position will be rook goes to f8 over here, and the knight captures the bishop, and the king captures back, and the bishop goes back to g3. The king goes back to e8, which is fine for at the moment because the rook cannot come over here, and a push of this pawn could allow that, but the engine didn't play that. So a4 and a6 is played. After h4, now trying to counter the attack, and the king tries to get away to the corner, and after the pawns get captured, the queen can capture back. The check will be closed like this with an attack on the queen, and after the pawn push, the position will be like this, and you're looking at a queen and 2 powerful bishops and with an active rook, whereas black's position is pretty exposed right now. and that might be the reason why this resignation happened quite early. So even in this position, after this pawn push, this bishop can come down to c2, attack this the queen over here, and this bishop is also eyeing this weak pawn over here. So it's basically that's where the position is basically locked. If the queen tries to capture this pawn over here like this, I'll just show you. It will be a checkmate like this. If the king moves over here, if it doesn't go for the capture, it'll be a check like this, and if the over here, it will be basically a checkmate on the board. So because of that, you cannot capture that particular pawn over here with the queen as well. So that's the game. Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back with great videos.